Hello, welcome to the first episode of Parallel Disney, where we travel between the Disney dimensions and find the anomalies between them. Today we're going to take a look at Peter Pan's flight, which occurs at 5 of the 6 known dimensions of Disney. The Peter Pan ride at first glance may seem identical to each other, but that is not the case, as you will see. Of the 6 known Disney dimensions, 5 have a Peter Pan attraction. Join me on this journey of discovery as we find the differences between each one. At Disney World, there is a queue that is extensive and interactive that cannot be found at either of the other parks. Everywhere else, the only thing there to really entertain you is the mural behind the loading station. The ride vehicles at Shanghai and Paris have 2 rows increasing ride capacity, while everywhere else only has 1. At Tokyo Disneyland and Walt Disney World, the ride will be in continuous motion even while loading and unloading. At the other parks, the ride will come to a complete stop. After loading, Paris and Disneyland both have a little gap that has the rooftops of London. Paris also has the addition of smoke effects. The smoke is a small effect, but I do enjoy it. A unique aspect that you will find in Tokyo is a flying Tinkerbell before the ride begins. At Shanghai, you are halted by a gate and get to see a little animation of Tinkerbell before you continue on your way. Now we begin the full-blown ride and differences really start to take off. At Disneyland, when entering the nursery, first you see Nana, followed by the kids already flying being sprinkled with pixie dust, and you see a highly animated shadow of Peter Pan fly out the window with you guys in hot pursuit. There is also a green laser following said shadow representing Tinkerbell. In Disney World, you pass by a sophisticated tea party, followed by an up-close and personal look at the darling children while sitting in bed. The shadow is also there, but nowhere near as animated. The nursery is quite similar to that of Disneyland's in Paris. However, Nana is about to knock over some blocks in her excited tail wagging. The darling children are still sitting on their bed, not yet able to fly, and the Tinkerbell laser is much more detailed with a trail of pixie dust following behind her. An additional nice improvement is that the windows that open up into London have actual windows. At Shanghai, you start outside for a bit before entering the window after seeing Peter Pan and Tinkerbell enter the nursery. Followed by that, you'll see Peter Pan sprinkling pixie dust on the darling children as they begin to float and exit another real window out into the streets of London. Tokyo's intro is rather similar to Disney World's, however there is no tea party and the shadow is very well animated. Alright, back at Disneyland, we exit the nursery and we're now in the streets of London, where we increase altitude rapidly until we get a great overhead view of the city. On one of the faces of the clock tower, you'll see the animation of Peter Pan and the darling children. And as you exit the scene, you'll see a very wonderful animation of the second star to the right becoming Neverland. As you exit the window at Disney World, you get to see Tinkerbell sprinkling pixie dust on you, and you see Nana from above. As you get over London, you have a much closer view and a more three-dimensional model than you do in Disneyland. Instead of the star, you see a moon with the silhouettes of the darling children as well as Peter Pan. The streets of London in Disneyland Paris is similar to that as Disneyland's. However, it doesn't have the improvements such as the animation in the clock tower or that of the second star to the right. In Shanghai, once leaving the nursery, you're greeted by Nana, who is also getting in on some of the flying action, and then you get to the streets of London, which also is rather similar to the style that is in Disneyland. However, in this one you get a nice little animation of Peter Pan and the darling children flying through the sky, as well as also an animated version of the second star to the right. When leaving the nursery in Tokyo, you see Nana with the darling children as well as Peter Pan flying around her, along with a more Disney World style of the streets of London. However, the cloud effects are definitely much more improved. However, Tokyo does differ from Disney World in the fact that it has a second star to the right instead of a moon, and this one is animation as well. However, it's achieved by fiber optics instead of projections, which makes it probably my favorite. Back at Disneyland, in the next scene, we fly through the night sky over Neverland. As you fly through this stunning starry field, you get great views of the island from overhead. Projection effects on the water really enhance this experience, and making it one of the best scenes in all of the Peter Pan dark rides. At Disney World, instead of flying over the island, you actually fly more through the island, which gives you some more close-up views of some of the scenery as well as additional characters. However, it is a little less exciting than being in the night sky. Paris, once again, aligns more with the Disneyland attraction. However, it seems to be a bit more volcanically active. The pirate ship also seems to be a bit larger. The rainbow is also a little bit more colorful. The Shanghai Disneyland is also rather impressive. However, the star field is a little less brilliant. The foliage, though, is definitely the best here, and it has a rather thick rainbow with a full Roy G. Biv. Tokyo Disneyland goes more with the Disneyland approach than the Disney World one, by having you fly over the island. It seems like this model is the least impressive, but I do enjoy that the rainbow is vertical here instead of horizontal. There are also some water flowy effects just off the island, which are pretty interesting, but nothing too special. The next scene at Disneyland, we approach Skull Rock, where we see Tiger Lily tied up with some of those enhanced water effects around her. At Disney World, we turn a corner and then boom, we're there at Skull Rock. But this time, no Tiger Lily. In Paris, as we approach Tiger Lily, we see that she's behind the lower jaw of Skull Rock tied up. In Shanghai, we find ourselves on the inside of Skull Rock as we splash down, finding Tinkerbell trapped inside a glass case. We also see Captain Hook's silhouette approaching Peter Pan as he's lying down on a ridge. In Tokyo, we see some of the scenes that were in the Disney World version, including the Mermaid Indians and the Lost Boys, but they have a slightly different layout. And then we approach Skull Rock, where once again Tiger Lily is nowhere to be found. For the Disneyland climax, we see Captain Hook and Peter Pan fighting at the front of the ship with Tick-Tock underneath. We then swoop by the Indians. Then approaching the back of the boat, we see the Darling Children along with Peter Pan getting dusted by Tinkerbell along with the ship. As we leave the ship, we see Captain Hook avoiding the jaws of Tick-Tock, Mr. Shmee rowing away, the mermaids with the Jolly Roger flying away in the background as the ride comes to a finish. In Disney World, we'll see that the mast goes a little bit lower to the bottom of the ship. You'll also see that Peter Pan and Captain Hook are now fighting on the mast. Tick-Tock is now to the side of the ship instead of at the bow, where the Indians were in Disneyland, and there's now a bunch of unconscious pirates on the deck as well. You will now find Captain Hook on the left side, trying to avoid the jaws of Tick-Tock, and now there are no mermaids and it's just the Jolly Roger taken off into the night sky in mural form. At Disneyland Paris, it's rather similar, almost identical to that of Disneyland, except this time as the ride ends you go through a waterfall and the Jolly Roger is on the right side just taking off into the sky. At Shanghai, Peter Pan and Captain Hook are fighting once again, however this time they are animated. Tick-Tock is also there underneath them, but this time he has a bit of his own animatronic movement. Past the ship there's just a waterfall. On the other side though, however, now it's just more fighting between Captain Hook and Peter Pan in silhouette form, except briefly as Captain Hook falls down in color. Then you have Smee now trying to assist Captain Hook, who is once again trying to avoid being eaten. Then as we go through some brush, we see Peter Pan with the Darling Children, followed by everyone getting sprinkled with pixie dust as they head out into the night sky and return back to Shanghai Disneyland. Tokyo Disneyland is rather similar to that of Disney World, however this time Tinkerbell is not physically there and is just shown as a swooping around projection. And also there's no longer a mural of the Jolly Roger taking off into the night sky. Thank you for listening to this report on the anomalies of Peter Pan's flight through the various Disney dimensions. If there's another attraction you'd like a report on, please leave it in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if you liked it.